expectations. The question you need to keep asking yourself is that what will I do with this lecture I've had? How will I implement it? Because if it's just to come, listen, and you go back without thinking about how to do that, then it means we have just wasted our time. It's about adding value to the system, improving our work and quality. God will help us all to do so in Jesus' name. If you are from CMS, can you please stand up for your quiz? Including the principal, because if you fail, then for the next lecture, you will remain standing. Are you ready? Where are the others? Your question. At times you will say, oh yes, you do your document. Put my document in PDF format. I want it in PDF. What is PDF? If you don't know it, the CMS will remain like that. Yes, one hand is up. Can you take microphone to him? What is PDF?
Portable document format.
Is that your final answer? Or you want to call a friend? Final answer? Okay, sit down. I started with letter A. You said that no, it was then you remember that you are not admitted. Thank God your principal is here. So somewhere, you said that you got somewhere, not admitted. So now it's your turn. Where are the certificates? God don't touch you for today. You will start if you don't know it. Let me join those of Awuri with them. Awuri and with them. You remember the story of this man, the NSC security, when they were asking him during live interview, say, do your organization have your website? He said, ask Oga at the door. He said, but you are, as an organization, you should know it. And he went there, tell us the website. He said, it's only Oga at the door. Who knows the website? And later when he was press further, he said, okay, I will tell you, www.com. What is www? You people will not know, you remain here. Why are you pointing at somebody else to answer?
World Wide Web.
World Wide Web. Shall we put hands together for them? Okay, please see. Which school? Lamps. Okay, the Lagos African guests, our hosts. You cannot help us with your food though. Lamps, can you stand up please? Lagos African guests. Just like we always say with the PDF. And I tell you say, oh yes, put it in JPEG. Yes, you say here JPEG, JPEG. That's the one. What is the meaning? Yes, any hand going up from last? Okay, you want to talk? Yes.
Joint photographic expert group.
Can somebody from last tell me what she said? I want another person from last to tell us. Because she is a computer teacher. we make fun, enjoy ourselves, at the same time we learn. OTP, once again, I will not know what I asked you. OTP means one time password. PIN means what? Personal identification number. SMS means what? Short message service. Wi-Fi means what? Wireless fidelity. PDF means what? Portable document format. JPEG means what? Joint photographic expert group. MMS. Who knows that one? MMS. That's multimedia messaging service. So tomorrow we'll continue later after the next one before we go to the field. Who is introducing the next person?
Standing on the existing protocol. Citation of Ayopeju Jideka. Ayopeju Jideka is a seasoned facilitator and accomplished administrator, currently serving as the CEO of Nurture House Consulting, an organization focused on enhancing the development of individuals and optimizing processes within diverse industries, particularly education. With a wealth of experience spanning over 2 decades, Ayopeju has successfully managed people and processes to drive improved performance across various sectors, including construction and engineering, education, and business consulting. Our main focus is now on the education sector. She holds a bachelor degrees in management and accounting, a postgraduate diploma in education, and a master's degree in educational psychology. Additionally, Ayopeju is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and is certified coach, credentialed by International Coaching Federation. As the head of Nurture House Consulting, Ayo collaborates with the state governments and private institutions, offering strategic solutions to address challenges in organizations, systems, people, and processes. Our expertise extends to board service, where she actively contributes to institutions such as the Corona Schools Trust Council, Oxbridge Tutorial College, Supreme Education Foundation Schools, Tertiary Schools, Federal Nigerian Society for the Blind, and the Vocational Training Center for the Blind. Beyond our professional pursuits, Ayopeju finds joy in designing and facilitating enriching learning conversations. In her free time, she engages in cycling, travel, and cherishes family life. My honorable colleagues, with a round of applause, let's make welcome the next facilitator.
Good afternoon, everyone. A big thank you to the Lagos and Girls Schools Management Board, and of course our board peers, the producer. There's a lot of talking It's been a long day, hasn't it? And the person that takes the last leg has a lot of work to do. So I know what is coming, but I want to appeal to you. If we do this together, the load will be very easy to carry. So I'm going to appeal to you. The next, I think it's between 60 and 90 minutes, but I'm going to try and finish this real quickly so we can have a conversation around it. So I'm going to appeal to you, just as they say, lend me your ears for a brief period. Are you okay? Sorry, just give me 1 minute. Technology out. So we're going to be talking about crisis ready. Are we crisis ready? And to be crisis ready, there are two sides to it. Can we manage crisis effectively? That's the first question. And the other side is, can we communicate strategically when we have issues around this? So that's what we're going to be talking about. So when we talk about schools, can anyone give us examples of what would be crisis to a school? When we talk about schools, when we say crisis, what would that be? It's not a rhetorical question, I'm asking, can we have a mic, please? Should I start picking beautiful faces? In fact, don't worry, I found the face. When we say crisis, what is crisis?
Crisis has to do with situations that are not pleasant, situations that you never bargained for.
I like that. So, not situations that are not pleasant and you didn't bargain for. I like that. So for this afternoon, 5 things we're going to touch on. 5 things that I hope by the time we're done, you will be able to do. The first one is to explain crisis management principles, the basic principles that guide you. Second one is that when you get back to your schools, I know you already have crisis management plans. Isn't that so? If we don't have, you create. If you already have, you can update that. Or when you are faced with situations where you are in crisis, you know, in Nigeria, we always pray that it happens to somebody, not us. Isn't that how it works? But sometimes God sends certain things that will make you stronger. And when you think of crisis, what I want you to always think about that crisis should actually make any organization better. Once you are able to achieve that, you are home and dry. That thing is determine effective communication strategies. Remember I said that in any crisis situation, 2 things are important. The first one, how you communicate, and the second one is how you respond. If you respond excellently and you do not communicate your response, people will start talking, there will be rumors, and clearly it won't go well. Then by the time we're done here, taking this back to school, you should also be able to simulate scenarios. If this happens, what are we going to do? What will they really look like? And lastly, to assess your schools. God forbid, we and then access your post-recovery. So that's what we're going to be covering this afternoon. Should I use this or you want to do the work? Okay, don't worry. So you want to be changing slides. Okay. Yes. Okay, yes, sir.
Definition of crisis. When many people are crying, this one cry, that one cry, she cry, he cry, and the one crisis. And in school, the parent cry, the student cry, the teacher cry, principal cry, everybody cries, then we all crisis. So it's about how we now respond to the cry of the parent, the cry of the student, or the cry of the staff, that will determine whether we are good manager or crisis.
Thank you very much. You see, that's something about IOS. I'm an IO. Oga is IO as well. IOs are very sharp. It's another Thank you, sir. Okay. So to be honest, that's the best definition of crisis I've heard. And honestly, we're sticking to it. Because crisis means that there's something that is disrupting everybody. And guess one crisis that is making everybody cry now? What is it? Now, children are complaining, and you know, I always say that I feel for people who have young children. Biscuits, Capri Sun, bread. I don't envy them. Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so formal definition of crisis, there are a few critical things. Number one is unexpected. The second one is that it can significantly disrupt operations. So the first thing is you do not expect crisis, however you need to plan for it. Particularly in the industry we are. In our industry, we hold people's treasures. You get what I mean by that? When people leave their children with you, sometimes things happen, but they want to be able to say that, the school did all within their capability. So whatever it is, we have that for them. God forbid that anything like that should happen. So it's so important that as a school, we plan for even what we think we cannot imagine. So crisis, two things. The third one is a threat to safety and well-being, particularly of students and staff. And the last bit of it is it can cause significant emotional or psychological, that's it. So if physically you are fine, you know these days we are always talking about mental health. If you cannot preserve their emotions and their psychological well-being, then as a school, you need to rethink it. So what are those things that will cause crisis? Can I have 3 people, please? Can I have 3 people? Yes, one, please come out quickly. Very simple assignment, very simple assignments. There are 3 scenarios on the board. Only one person. Please don't make this work hard. I'm begging you. Thank you, sir. I want parents to love someone. I want point to conquer this time. Okay, can I have one people? Please read what you have on the board. There are 3 scenarios. There are 3 scenarios. There are one more person. Madam, I think I like your face. Please join them very quickly. Thank you very much. Read what you have on the board, and they're going to tell us which one. You read the 3 situations. Read the 3 situations, and you're going to tell us which one is not a crisis. You can come together and agree which one is not a crisis. together agree which one is not a crisis. And other people you can read as well, but they're just going to represent us. Tell us which of this is not a crisis. You will tell us why.
We decide on power outage simply because it could be managed. Examples normally fetch to evenings, so the daylight can still be used. And for what is on the screen, a backup generator or a solar can be used immediately. But the other two, they are natural phenomena. Internet. Wow. That is like O-level Cambridge and A-level Cambridge that is online. Yes. Wow. It can. It actually happened in my school. The online was UTME. What we did was that we quickly looked for the alternative.
Thank you very much. A round of applause to three of them. The whole idea is to get us thinking that even sometimes when you come across crisis, there are ways around it, provided it's not that it's 80 salads that is following you. If you have 80 salad, remove the seed, throw it in the dustbin. I'm telling you, yeah? As long as it's not 80 salads, they cannot arrest me. There's nothing they can do. Particularly those of us in certain parts. If you go to the east, there have been so many issues with flooding now. But generally, somehow we still get by with the natural disasters. And of course, health. What's the health challenge we're facing in Nigeria now? Cholera. And guess what? I understand COVID has come back. That's what figures are showing. That many people who have been having cold and catarrh, they've been testing positive to COVID. evolving. So it's time to be careful once again. And you know, with children, ladies and gentlemen, let's agree on something. Let's give each other the next 15 minutes. And after that is the sports, right? So I know we're tired. Once my right hand goes up, it means, what does it mean? Silence. Thank you very much. I'm sure we're not new to that. Right. So please, let's just keep the noise level down. Let's keep the conversations aside for now. Let's do this short and sharp. We'll finish, and then you can go and focus on your sports. So security can be an issue. In fact, I shouldn't tell you about security. I shouldn't say anything about security around vulnerable. You understand what it means when we say that there could be a security breach and it can lead to all sorts. You can have kidnap situation, you can have an active shooter. Thankfully in Nigeria, we've never had an active shooter in any school. And my prayer is that as a nation we'll never get to that. Then the other one is transportation and other things. School buses could have accidents. It's not a pleasant situation. I've been involved in that. You will also have electrocution. Personally, that's the worst crisis in a school that I've been in. When we lost 4 men in one day because they were electrocuted. This happened like 12 years ago. But it's still one of the things that when I remember, it can cause me nightmares sometimes. So many things can lead to a crisis. However, the important thing is you must plan, over plan, and communicate effectively during a crisis. And I love this quote by Andy Gilman. And he says when you're in a crisis situation, it's not about good or bad. It's about ensuring that the bad doesn't move to worse. So bear that in mind. A crisis situation is already bad because there's danger, there's fear, there are all sorts of things going on. So what you want to do is to contain it so that it doesn't get any worse. And that is really what crisis management is about. So let's look at what it really is when we talk about. So when we talk about crisis management, having a crisis management plan, again, I will go back to where I started from. When we talk about crisis, 2 things are important. Your plan, which will guide your response, and then your communication during the crisis. Those are the 2 heavy sides, and I'm happy to be one last part, which is the human part. But let's quickly talk about crisis management. So there are 9 steps to crisis management. I'm not going to dance around on this. I'm just going to give it to you because we don't have time. There are 9 clear steps to having a crisis management plan. And the first step is to establish a crisis management team. That's the first thing. You must have a team because the team is going to do many things on behalf of the larger body. When you're talking about the team, 3 major things to consider. The first one is the composition. Who are the people who will be in that team? Usually, you will have who you call a crisis coordinator. The crisis coordinator is the one who takes charge. When anything is happening, that's the person who has the final decision. But it doesn't do this alone. The crisis coordinator will work with people like from security, from admin, from pastoral, from health. All the key areas of the school will be represented in that team. And for each one of them, they will have a clear role and responsibilities as it regards crisis. For instance, when you have a facility manager as part of that team, his role is to ensure that he provides the plan for all the buildings. So if you want to have something like, maybe you want to do a fire drill, he knows the best place and he would have advised on the best place to make the muster points. He would have also advised on exits and all that. So certain people are critical. Also, the admin person or whoever is in charge of the secretariat who has contact of all parents, that sort of person is also very critical to that team. The health team is also very critical. If it's a health emergency, how do you attend to it? And usually usually most emergencies will have a health factor. Even if it's not physical, sometimes the news can shock someone so much that they pass out. So that's why the composition of that team, making their roles and responsibilities very clear to them is important. And the last thing about setting up your team is training them. Why is it important to train them? If you don't know how to do something and they put you in charge of it, chances that you will not deliver. That's one. Then passion without skill can only lead to more crises. Passion without skill will only lead to more crises. Sorry, I'm going to make it all very difficult. I don't know how to stand in one place, so just pardon me, Thank you. So passion without skill is not going to lead the school or the team anywhere. Second one is risk assessment. What are the chances of all we can be exposed to? What are the things that will happen? And for this particular one, the team alone cannot do it. It's the responsibility of the entire school. However, the team will lead that. And guess what? One component or one part of the community that is very important. Who can guess? One side of the community that we usually exclude. In fact, two sides that we usually exclude but are very important. Can anyone guess one? The students, thank you very much. Students know all the dangers that will be in that compound. They know. Two are I'll call them the junior staff. The janitors, the drivers. You know, sometimes when we're having very strategic meetings, we don't involve them. But the things they know, you'll be amazed. So when it comes to crisis, our setting up a crisis management, please make sure you include them. And the last one is assess all your vulnerabilities. Don't decide that one is important, one is not important. Whatever it is that could be a vulnerability, please make sure that you cover. The third one is to develop the response procedures. And when you talk about your response procedure, it's very simple. If this happens, what will we do? How do we respond to situations? How do we respond to situations that is very, whose role is it? Whose responsibility is it? Who gets to speak with people? Who gets to take charge of students? Who manages parents? You know, it has to be really, really clear. So all these areas, when you discover what happens, how do we communicate to government? How do we communicate? You know, everybody, everything has to be clearly laid out. And how do you, if it's necessary, how do you ever quit if you need to? How do you ever quit? You know, the incident I was talking about happened in a school, and I was director of admin of this very huge school. On that particular project, I had nothing to do with the teaching side, except for the fact that, of course, I was on the senior leadership team. So in terms of policies, I was involved. But my role there was to set up all the administrative processes, everything non-teaching, marketing, admin, you know, facilities. And I was in the office. I can't remember what day of the week, but I remember it was about 2 p.m. and I got a call. Madam, there's wahala. I said, what is it? And they said, 3 men are down. I said, down how? And they said something, electricity, something. Anyway, I said, okay, and I went. Now, we had students around. The security men on any shift, at that time, there were like 32 per shift. And people were already leaving their posts. You can imagine the pandemonium. And you can imagine students panicking, saying, what is it, what's happening? So there are times that you get into crisis and you need to take a decision. Are you evacuating, even if it's from a particular area, or are you locking down, depending on what the situation is? That that is what the part that you develop your response procedures, that is what it will cover. Because if you have such a terrible incident, chances are you want to move students away from the area where it happened. Because students, all they need is one person who will get hold of a phone and say, "Mommy, mommy, many people have died in school." That's all you need. Many people. Because to a child, 3 is a lot. In fact, to any institution, losing 3 men and later adding 1 to it is a lot. So you're developing your response has to be on point. You really need to lay down everything you need to do per event. Then create your communication strategies. This is very critical. If you have the best plan and do not communicate during a crisis, all you are going to do is leave room for rumors. And once rumors start, have you ever played the Chinese whispers? You start from one end, you whisper something to someone. By the time it gets to about the 4th, 5th person, the story has changed. Totally different. And that's what happens with rumors. They start with something small. By the time the entire thing, you will wonder, where did that happen? You are asking questions yourself, that really is that what they said? So to avoid that, you must manage your communication well. You must communicate strategically. And there are 2 key sides to communication. One, you have your internal communication and you have your external communication. Now, to have your internal communication done excellently is something you start before you have crisis. You must have a culture of how you communicate. You must have a culture. If you have a culture of open communication, people will learn to ask questions. If you have a culture of silence, what do you think people will do? They will form their own stories. It's that simple. When you don't communicate with people, things are happening, they don't know what's going on, they will form their own stories, and you really don't need that. Then when you talk about your external communication, you're talking about communicating with parents, stakeholders who are not directly involved. Parents are not here day to day. But you must communicate with them. Keep it simple, keep it short. We're still going to look at communication. So I'll just move on till we get there. And the last one is media management. So, media management simply means on a regular day you have a rule within your school. What can be posted on social media? What are staff allowed to communicate? How is your general communication with the media? How is that managed? Because in the days of social media, it can be quite challenging. I remember I was on a project, and usually when we work with schools, we have a very simple rule. You cannot upload pictures of the team working in the school. For instance, if you are to come in here to do a review of your processes, of course we'll be here, but we cannot take pictures and upload. We are in CMS today, we're in something school tomorrow. And we have this new consultant, agency consultant who joined the team. And I got a call, saying, check so and so page on Facebook. And what did I see? I saw this lady, and she had some students behind her. That was major because the school we were working with was an international school, and they don't take those things lightly. You expose their children, you can get into trouble. So the question is, what rule have you put in place? And that is what will drive your media management when you're doing it. 5 is prepare resources and materials. That is so wide. What are the emergency supplies you need? In fact, as a school, there's something that must be intact all the time. Your first aid kit must be there all the time. You must have, depending on the number of students, there are basic rules to it. A certain number of cartons of water in case there is any crisis. You have enough supplies, particularly for boarding schools. And the other side to resources is documentation. Everything you do, you are documenting. When this happens, you do that. It's like a manual. In fact, it is a manual that people refer to, so that if anything happens, crisis is not the time you want to think. Because you can't think well with all the hormones raging. Adrenaline is too high. So what you do is you have it all documented so that if there's anything, you simply refer to it. Then the other thing is to develop training and skills. There are many things that we're not born with. We're not born with those things. So people need to, number one, be trained regularly. One of the most simple ones is first aid training. When last did we have a general first aid training here? When last? Last week. Before last week? Last year. So all the people who joined in the course of the year. Okay. So for their basic trainings that we need to expose our people to, so that if there's anything they're able to. Then regular drills and simulations. How often do we have fire drills? How often do we have fire drills? Let me ask Oga, how often do you have fire drills? Okay, you do it internally, but yeah, good. Now who knows about it? When you're planning the drills, who are the people who know?
For us, this year is going to ensure that the house masters, they are part of it, the maintenance officer.
They know ahead.
Yes, as well as the nurse, the two nurses.
Okay, which is fine. But sometimes you need to have a fire drill that nobody knows. Because what you are testing, God forbid, nobody will know. God forbid that there should be and fire will not tell you, I'm coming at 4, I'm coming, and it will be at night. I remember one of the drills, the school I was talking about. Generally the drills, only 2 of us will know about it. The principal, it depends on the circumstance. Sometimes he won't even know. So it was just 2 of us, myself and the head of facilities. Just 2 of us will know. And the reason he will tell me is I have keys to certain places based on my role. But I remember we got to a point and I said to him, don't tell me time, let's truly test our system. So one day, there I was asleep, 2 a.m. 2 a.m. and the alarm went off. I ran out in my dressing gown that day. It was truly a fire drill. But things were in place. The children, they need to get up and just go outside and it worked. But that's because we had been doing it. So things like developing training and drills is so important. Because God forbid, remember I said we're holding people's treasure. If anything happens, at least the children should be able to say, but this is how they prepared us. Then establish your recovery process or procedures. After it, what happens? After whatever it is, how does the school recover? How do you make sure that all the students, if there was any learning loss, how do you make sure you cover the academic activities they miss, even the sporting activities? How do you make sure that people are restored to good mental health positions? How do you make sure that whatever it is you have recovered, even financially? And how do you evaluate your response to the crisis? That's what this is all about. Documentation is key. I've spoken about this already. And also distribution of the documentation. Who has what? Who needs to know what? And do they have access? I mean, these days of technology. But remember that sometimes technology will fail completely. This happened less than 2 weeks ago, where flights in the US of all places, everything was grounded because there was a hitch. And it messed up a lot of things. They had a lot of backlog. So as you are relying on technology, also know that technology to some extent is not reliable. The final one is review and update regularly. So it simply means that for those of us who already have the crisis management plans in place, when you go back to your school, please make sure you review, you update it, and you continuously improve it. So we're going to move to the second side, and the second side has to do with communication. Remember I said, what's the first one I said is very critical? I mentioned 2 sides. First one is what? communication strategy. No matter how good your plan is, if you do not communicate strategically and effectively, it can mess up the whole reputation of an establishment. It's when I have 15 minutes more, let me know. So communication plan, what exactly it is? I'm just going to pull up the key areas. Number one, information flow must be efficient. It should go to where it should be at the time it needs to be there. It has to be very efficient. So if anything is happening, when are parents supposed to know? It should get there. Who is supposed to deploy the information to them? And it should also be effective among all stakeholders. All stakeholders. There's no small, there's no big stakeholder. Every stakeholder is important. The strategy should include clear protocols, very clear protocols. This should happen, that should happen when it comes to internal and external communication. That's so important. And it should also have predefined messages posted on designated communication channels. Now, talking about predefined messages, every message that should go out during a crisis, you should have a template for it. Why? When there is no crisis and you are writing, you have the time to look through it, you have the time to argue it. What does this sound like? Whoever reads this one, is the person going to panic? Whoever reads this, how will it sound to them? So if you have all those templates, and remember that it is not necessarily the person in charge of communicating who's in charge of crafting those messages. It's not necessarily the man who, for instance, you have a PRO in the organization, right? It may not necessarily be the PRO. Ideally, it should be, but sometimes you find out that the people that have the strength for writing are not necessarily the people who are in charge of the communication. And what that team helps you do is you pick the very best to do all you need to do. So communication is important. It has to be very strategic. So let's look at the objectives of internal communication. 3 simple objectives. Number 1, timely dissemination of information. Because when information is delayed, it causes a lot of hiccups. When information is delayed, people make their own story. They don't know, there can be vacuum in life. Once I'm not sure, I will create a story for you. Second one is clear instruction on safety and response actions. Safety is critical. Sorry, I don't know how to say. I will make back up. So when we're talking about information, what's the second thing? You need to communicate to them safety in certain situations and what should they be doing. You know that when there is crisis, everybody knows it all. Have you ever been at a bus stop when something happened to somebody? You know, Nigerians were very wonderful people. If it's Oyibo people, everybody will stand aloof and be looking. Nigeria, everybody will crowd. Some will say pour water, that one will say bring stick, hit the person, different things. So it's important that as an organization, we are very clear. This is how to stay safe, and this is what you do in every kind of situation. And that's part of what the team sets up. And finally, how do you maintain calm and order when there is crisis? How do you maintain that? Those are things you need to talk about and communicate to your internal stakeholders. And the other side, also 3 very clear, you want to keep parents, guardians, and the larger community, you want to keep them informed about whatever it is. The information you need to give to them, you want to give it to them about the crisis and what you are doing to manage the situation. What parents want to hear is, that happened there, where is my child? Oh, the children are safe, this is what we've done, that is what is going on. For some parents, once they hear anything, what do? Especially boarding schools. They land, I want to take my child. But if you do this early enough, you are able to manage crisis. Second thing is to provide accurate and timely information, updates, whether they ask or they don't ask. They are just sending information. After a while, let them be the ones to say, you know, they come every time, it's okay now. But do your own job, agree on the volume of information, bombard them. I always say that when you give too much information, it's better than giving too little. Too much information actually makes you look like you are the only person, the only set of people you are thinking about, and they feel important and it's good for the organization. Also, it helps them maintain trust and transparency. In crisis, when an organization is conscious of providing information, conscious of communicating strategically, then it helps you earn trust and also transparency. And you know, when parents trust a school brand, they fight for that brand. Did you hear that? When parents trust a brand, they fight for the brand. There are the ones that will say, no, that's not true. Even when it's true, even when the school makes a mistake, parents will rise and fight for it. But it doesn't just happen. It comes by building all these things intentionally. What are the key elements for internal communication? A PA system like this, or whatever it is, however it is, students should be able to hear. Just create something that they can hear. Then internal messaging platforms. But when we're sending these internal messaging platforms, it could be anything. Some schools use WhatsApp, others use, there are many platforms these days. But you must be careful. Non-disclosure agreements should be very clear with staff. What can staff send forward? What can they move forward? What can they post on the general platform? It's so important to manage it because the days of social media, before you know it, it has gone far. And when you send out those kind of things, it's generally more easy to retrieve. And of course, an emergency alert system. For some schools, it's flashlights and voice. Whatever it is that will work for you, please let it do. Then start briefings. You can never go wrong with start briefing. When you gather staff constantly during crisis, and you're giving them information, it just helps you restore calm in the organization or in the school. And of course, classroom communication skills. This is particularly for teachers who manage the students. At this skill, some people, the way they will communicate the problem is the problem. It's just the way they say, hey, student, everybody sit down. You don't know there's a problem. Now, what is it? And meanwhile, for some people, there is fire on the mountain. And they come in and say, students, I need you to calm down. We're not in a very good situation now, but this is happening, that is happening, we will be safe, this and that. So it's something we need to teach people. It doesn't just happen, we need to teach them. And the last one is posters and visual aids concerning all the safety issues. On the side of parents, you can't go wrong with parent notification. Then your website and your social media platforms. During crisis, social media platforms must be well managed. It's not the place to announce crisis at all. So that has to be very well managed. And of course, your community outreach. The last part that I said I was going to add is the personality side. The personality side of sorry, I'm going on, I guys are doing that. There's a personality side of crisis management. There are things, there is a proper way to behave as a leader, as a teacher, as whatever it is we are. But during crisis, it becomes even more important that as people who work in schools, demonstrate certain attributes, and I've just put in 4 pairs. The list is endless. The first thing is, for the people that you're even going to select and put in that team, the crisis management team, leadership and decisiveness is very important. It's extremely important. Extremely important. And I will always go back to that, my baptism of crisis. That's what I like to call it. So at a point, I said we lost 3 men, right? 4 men, sorry. So 2 went down there and then. The 3rd one on the floor, so this is the full story. we had some security lights outside, you know those big security lights. And to change the bulb, they will always use the scaffold. Now, the safety rule, when you want to move a scaffold, you take off the one on top. Because if you don't, it's possible that it will touch the electrical wire. At that point, they generally never used to have power. 133 kVA cable. Generally, there will be power. But for whatever reason, laziness, whatever it is, they did not take it off. And as they were wheeling it, they got over it and they touched it. And you know that's all it means. So the guy on top, straight away. Then another one, I think he was holding, that one was gone. One had partial contacts, and the last one took the same. So 2 on the spot. And you see, the challenge is, you know when that kind of thing happens, nobody will remember to say, oh, it's their fault, it's anybody's fault. The eyes will be on the establishment. Okay, let's see what the institution will do. So it was a case of somebody had to take decisions. That was the day I knew how strong I could be. Because I didn't see myself. But what they told me later was, I got there that day and I said, go out the ambulance, carry this one, do this one. To be honest, I became a robot. All I was thinking of was, what am I going to tell their families? We have to say, and this happened about 1 or 2, and the crisis went on till 2 a.m. At 2 a.m., before then, I think about 11 p.m., we had to take a decision. Leave the guy in Abeokuta or move him to UCH. I said move him to UCH because Abeokuta couldn't help him. And the reason they wanted to wait was it's dark. I said, you guys are driving an ambulance. Add security vehicle to them, go. They called me at 2 a.m. and said the last man had died in the ambulance. And I said, guess what I said to them? Thank you very much for the information. And I switched off all my phones. I changed and I slept. Yes. You know why I did that? I knew that I had a long several days ahead. So between 2, I don't know how I slept the sleep. I don't know whether I was real sleep. I slept, I don't know. But I knew I needed to just, just calm down. And by 5:30, I was dressed in the office. And that went on for like 3 days back to back. So you see this issue of leadership and decisiveness is so key. Whoever is going to be part of that team is very important. Then calmness and composure. God forbid, those guys, there were people that I knew one-on-one. These were our technicians. If I had gotten there and I said, yeah, so it was hard for me, but I had to hold up. You know how soldiers do it at war, and no matter what, they just carry on. So that's what crisis is about. And I'm sure that the producer has his own side to holding on in the face of crisis. But it's so important, the empathy and communication. As I was doing that, I was getting calls from the Lagos office. To be honest, I was irritated. Why are you calling me? What do you want to hear that you're doing? But I had to be very civil, I had to be polite, I just had to maintain decorum. Was it easy? No. Sometimes I would drop the phone, enter toilet, cry, wash my face. Because these are human beings, people we knew one-on-one. So it's so important that these things, whoever is going to be part of the team, whoever is going to manage something, and you see, it's not about one person is strong, or another one is weak. We're all just wired differently. The me that will see something and say, no, if you bring injection out, I will start crying. As in, injection, common injection. I don't like it. I don't want it. Do you understand? So we all have, if you throw cockroach at me, in fact, you are disgraced me, because I will jump on the next table. Small cockroach, I will fly. Do you understand? Everybody has their own. So it's important that however you're going to determine personality, know who you are putting on those things. And lastly is resilience and stress tolerance. So some people, anything like this, they will complain. Hey. You need to find those people that no matter what, head is up, you know, they are just moving on. And thankfully we have many clergymen around here. I guess it's part of the training, but I also know they're human. For those of us who are not, try and find out how they do it. But you know, in a school environment, all these things are very important, especially as it concerns crisis management. We're not going to do this. I've shared it with the group. I'm going to try to wrap up so that we can at least take 1 or 2 questions. This is what I said I wasn't going to, we're not going to do, proper scenario analysis, and what you look out for when you're doing the scenario. What's the initial response and actions, key roles and responsibilities, I've talked about all that, and then your communication strategies. So there are 2 scenarios, schools can go and do that individually on their own. And I love this quote as well. I love quote. It says, being challenged in life is inevitable. It says, being defeated is optional. So it is what you make out of your crisis. Crisis will come, but it is what you make out of it. Do you want to use that time to show parents that the golden eggs or the jewels you have put in our hands, we don't joke with them. We have plans in place, God forbid that anything should happen. And you know what? You can never ever prepare enough for any crisis. It is when it comes that you will know. My prayer is that as we plan for crisis, it will always be to plan. Will you not find it? It's a prayer, but you know sometimes things happen. But my prayer also is that the day the plans will be tested, you will not be found wanting. Thank you very much. I'll take comments, I will take questions, comments, if you have any. Any questions? So if I don't get